A warm welcome to this new YouTube channel. The name of the channel is The Eternal World Picture, and it's about the eternal world picture as it is described by the Danish author Martinus. In this video I will introduce some aspect of this eternal world picture. I'll tell who Martinus was, and I'll tell a bit about myself as well. So what is the eternal world picture? Well, there's a lot to be said about the eternal world picture, so I've picked some of the main aspects of it so I can give you an idea about what it is about. The first aspect of the eternal world picture is that there is a spiritual world, and it is as real as the physical world, but we don't have the consciousness or the ability so we can experience it, at least not yet. However, we experience plenty of signs of the spiritual world in our daily existence. The mental or the physical side of us, our thinking, our thoughts, they are all part of the spiritual world. So, in a way, we as human beings are both a physical and a spiritual living being. We know the spiritual world from our dreams. We might have experienced a state in our dreams where we can fly, we're younger than we are, older than we are, we meet people who are not physical anymore, and so forth. These experiences are not physical because our physical senses are inactive or shut down when we sleep. So Martinus states that must be something else. And Martinus explains that this is the spiritual world we're experiencing in our sleep. And furthermore, he explains that due to an underdeveloped memory, we cannot remember it well. So dreams are not hallucinations, but ill-remembered memories from our sleep, where we are in the spiritual world. So in other words, dream shows that there is another state of living than the physical one. The existence of the spiritual world enables us to provide meaning to our life, because the spiritual world is one of the missing links in explaining why our lives are what they are. If our life starts when we are born, then it doesn't make much sense that some people are born with talent, lovely parents, and have a happy life, where others lack talent, live in poverty, and experience a lot of suffering in their life. Why is that the case? Why is that fair? The question leads us to the next part that I would like to go over in the eternal world picture, which is reincarnation. Reincarnation is part of the explanation of why things are what they are. Reincarnation is that we have lived life before the current one and will be reborn into new physical life after the current ones. Martinus explains that we live in a spiritual world between each of our physical lives. Martinus also explains that we can train in different areas in our current life and grow talents, which will be available to us in future life. Like some of our current talents can be something that we have trained in former lives. That explains why some people are very talented in an area and others need more training and experience, simply because the first person has the talent from previous lives, whereas the other person is just starting out to become talented in that area. Reincarnation gives us a better explanation about why we are different when it comes to talent and life situation than the physical or the materialistic view of life can provide us. With reincarnation, we can start to see an explanation or meaning of life. So one thing is different talent, but what about the fact that some people have a more pleasant life and others suffer more than others? Some people seem more lucky than others. What is the justice in all that? How can this be fair? Is life in general unfair? Martinus explained that life is 100% fair, although it might not seem that way. Part of the explanation is the concept of karma. Karma is that your destiny or what your experience is in life is a result of what you have sent out or have done to others in this or in previous lives. Martinus tells us that we cannot experience something that we have not done ourselves in a similar way to someone else. You create your own future or destiny every day by the things that you do, because they will come back to you at a later stage in this or in future life. This is not to be perceived as punishment. We only get what we need to further develop and keep experience our lives. Martinus explains that right now we are getting experiences from what we have sent out earlier in order to develop into what he calls the real human beings. And I will come back to that. Martinus explains that the evil or the suffering in the world is a result or consequence of a lack of knowledge. We can, when we have the experience and intelligence for it, learn from theory, but in areas where we lack the sufficient experience, there's only way one forward, and that is to get the first-hand experience in our daily lives. For instance, how do we make peace? Well, making peace is an ability. So we need the ability to make peace in order to make peace. We get this ability by experience and learning. Martinus explains that this takes several lives, and our day-to-day experiences and suffering will over time provide us the understanding that we cannot stop a war by creating or going to war. Martinus states that it is similar to try to stop a fire with fire. We know that that doesn't work, because it will only make the fire worse if we try to put it out with fire. And he says the same thing goes with war. As long as we keep going to war, the wars will continue. The same principle applies to every other aspect of our life. We need to learn the ability of making peace physically and mentally to get to the peace. And this ability requires knowledge. So all the war, all the suffering, Martinus explains, is about lack of knowledge, lack of experience. So the lack of knowledge or experience leads us to the next aspect, the meaning of suffering. The way we get our ability to create peace instead of war is by becoming compassionate for our fellow beings. Through our own suffering in this or previous lives, we get a feeling, a recognition, our understanding of the other living being's situation. We can kind of feel it in our own consciousness, what it means to others when they are suffering, because we have similar experiences, whether we can remember them or not. So we can feel that if we harm them or in other ways do things that make them suffer, it starts to hurt ourselves in a way. We get bad consciousness. This feeling for other living beings and a logical way of preventing us from suffering is the ability to create peace within ourselves, our surroundings, and in the world. This ability is also known as neighborly love in the Bible, so it's not a new concept. And it is to respect and love your fellow beings in an intellectual and logical way. The next aspect is about living beings. And the question is, so who are these fellow living beings? According to Martinus, a living being consists of what we know as an I, like in I am doing things, an ability to create an experience, and the created matter. He calls this the Jung principle, I hope I pronounce it somewhat correctly, because it's three principles of the same thing, and this thing is the living being. He explains that all material and matter is a manifestation from living beings. We know very well that humans have what we call an I and are capable of changing and creating things such as houses, cars, or other things. We also recognize that animals are living beings, and to some extent that plants are. Martinus explains that there are many more living beings around us than the humans, the animals, and the plants, and they're in the small and in the big. He says that our body consists of living organs, cells, and so forth, and that we have a whole living universe as our body. Moreover, we also live within a living universe. The earth is a living being, with water being similar to our blood, human beings are its brains, and so forth. So Martinus argues that living beings are living within each other, and the whole universe is one big living organism. The idea of living beings within living beings extend the idea of neighborly love to more than other than just human beings. Firstly, we should think about who is closest to us, which is other human beings, but also animals. Martinus encourages us to become vegetarians, to avoid killing animals, both for ethical and health reasons. We can easily live our lives without killing animals for food. However, we need to live, so we need to eat plants, at least for now. So what is going on? What is the meaning of life? Martinus states that there are two meanings, one in an internal perspective and one in a local perspective. We need to understand a bit about what eternal means before we come to that answer. Essentially, something that is eternal does not have a start or an ending. So that has to be something that has always been. It cannot have a timely or spatial expression. Therefore, Martinus states that from an eternal perspective, the reason for living is to experience life. No more, no less. The meaning of life is to experience something. This something is without any local details. It might sound a little bit strange because we are so used to details, directions, meanings, and all that stuff. But that's something I will come back to in a future video. So from a local perspective, which is the local meaning for us, that's where we are in our lives, here and now. Martinus explains that we are on our way from being partly animals and partly humans, and that we are developing towards what he calls the real human beings. I cannot go into many details in an introduction video, but essentially Martinus explains that we are partly animals and live on what he calls the killing principles, and we are partly human beings where we live by the principle of neighborly love. So we are neither a pure animal or a pure human being, and that is what creates all our problems and conflicts within both our physical or mental part and in our physical world. So the meaning of life in a local perspective is to develop through experiences to overcome the animal part of us and become a real human being. So the last aspect is, what is the solution to the mystery of life? Martinus provides logical arguments and strings of thoughts to explain this to us. The solution to life is that everything is very good, which means that everything that we encounter and experience in the end is a benefit to us. I cannot go into all details here, but the essence is that we can only experience through contrast. So we have to experience the unpleasant to experience the pleasant and vice versa. Thereby does the unpleasant become a good thing, although a very, very unpleasant good thing. The same applies to the pleasant experiences that are conditioned for experience the unpleasant. Without both the pleasant and the unpleasant, there is no experience of any of them, and thereby no experience of life. and thereby both the pleasant and the unpleasant becomes a good, because that enables us to experience life. And that's the reason for claiming that everything is very good. This is a very short version of the solution to the mystery of life, but I hope it provides an idea about what the eternal world picture is about. Martinus provides many details on why and how this is the case, and I've barely touched the surface of it in this video when it comes to explaining and detailing things. This is not a new religion or dogma. Martinus clearly intends this to be a science in the sense that we as individuals should be able to check everything he writes based on our own experiences and thinking. This is not intended to be something we should believe in. This is something we can, if we're capable, go over and think critical about. Martinus encourages us to meet his work with an open mind, and that we should try to get past our current assumptions or ways of thinking and really try to figure out what truth is in the different areas. And he does not want us to just believe in what he writes. He really wants us to think based on what we know from our daily lives, what our experience tells us. I would also like to mention that because it's not a new religion, but a science, it is not possible to become a member of a Martinus society, a church, or anything like that. Martinus is very much against anything like this in relation to his work. He stated that the content of his writing is the important part of his work and not him as a person. Finally, I think it's important to emphasize that Martinus writes that every individual should pursue what inspires them. If it is not his work that inspires, but maybe some other holy book, then that is perfectly fine. Go with that. He actually goes so far to say that it would be wrong to pursue his work if an individual is inspired by something else. And I bring this up because I think it's an example of the tolerance that he provides. Martinus was born in Denmark in 1890. He lived the first part of his life in a small village called Sindal in Denmark. He was raised by foster parents under quite modest circumstances. Martinus had a profound expansion of his consciousness at the age of 30. He describes this as something that gave him a permanent ability to perceive the spiritual world, eternal laws, and having the mystery of existence resolved. He calls this state of mind cosmic consciousness, and he says that this is what we all are developing towards. After Martinus gained cosmic consciousness, he spent the rest of his life to explain his experiences. His main work is called The Book of Life, or Livets Bog, which is the Danish title. He actually wanted Livets Bog to be called that in all languages. Martinus also made 100 symbols to illustrate the eternal world picture and make it easier for us to understand and navigate the world picture. The symbols can be found and are explained in the books named The Eternal World Picture. He also wrote hundreds of articles and held many lectures. He established the Martinus Institute, which published his works, and the Martinus Center in Klint in Denmark, which is a center for teaching his work. You can find more about all this on the Martinus Institute homepage named martinus.dk, and you can also read his work at martinus.dk. Quite a bit of his work is translated into English, not all of it. The first 5 out of 7 volumes of the Book of Life are translated. Quite a lot of articles, and you can read it all on martinus.dk. Martinus lived until he was 90, and he died in 1981. I'm a native Dane, and I've read Martinus' work since I was 17. I recently felt like starting communicating Martinus' work, so that's why I have started this channel. And the reason why I do that is that Martinus' work has meant quite a lot to me, and maybe it could do for someone else as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, and please leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions. And until next time, have a great time.